For the last 2 weeks, I've used nothing but 4 of the best rose rolls in Destiny 2 PvP. During that time, I also managed to rack up around 1,000 kills between the 4 rolls. Now, in this video, I'm going to figure out which roll was best. I'm also going to be showing you why I chose these 4 rolls, how to get the hand cannon, what role you should use for your playstyle, and I'm also going to be getting a second opinion from a top tier Destiny 2 PvP player. Before we get into the first roll, something I did for this review is color coordinate each rose roll. So if you're ever wondering what role I'm using in gameplay, all you have to do is look at the left side of your screen where you can see the shader, and then compare it to the rose roll that is being shown on screen. These are the 4 roles I mainly used while recording this video. They're not going to be up very long, so if you want to pause or come back later and look, you are more than welcome to do so. With that being said, let's get to building the perfect rose roll. So when I take a look at the drips, which isn't something commonly seen on most hand cannons, so it's not really discussed all that much, there seems to be a single drip that massively outshines the others, that being the combat drip. Now the combat drip grants +5 recoil direction, which allows us to reach 100 recoil direction without the assistance of arrowhead break, which is kind of a big deal, because this allows us to reach that perfect vertical recoil while also being able to run a range boosting barrel perk, which means in kind of a weird and roundabout way, this drip is essentially equating to range, something none of the other drips can do, as they only affect stability and handling. If you aren't able to get combat drip on your rose roll, I would say just go with whatever drip grants you the most stability, as that is a much more important stat than handling on hand cannons. Now moving on to barrels and magazine perks. For the barrels, there are 2 top tier options in the column, those being smallbore and hammer-forged rifling. The reason for that is they both grant substantial range without subtracting any other stats. However, if I had to choose between the 2, I would have to go with smallbore, as I really enjoy that +7 stability in addition to the extra range. Now, I know a lot of people will probably disagree with me here and want to go with full bore. However, it's just too big of a hit to stability for me to justify the slight increase in range over hammer-forged rifling or small bore, as you can really feel the -10 hit to stability. However, if you get something like a stability masterwork or a high stability barrel, then it might be an okay option for you. If you weren't able to get combat drip, arrowhead break or extended barrel could both be pretty good options for you, as they both grant enough of an increase to recoil direction to get you to 100. If you aren't able to get any of these barrels on your roll, just go with what gives the most stability and call it a day. Moving on to magazines. There is really only one magazine that's worth going for here, and that is accurized rounds, as it's the only magazine perk that grants range and is therefore just the best. The only other magazine perk of note is stability rounds, as it subtracts range and therefore is just bad. Any other magazine perks are basically irrelevant in PvP, so pick whatever sounds the nicest. Now it's time for the important stuff, the third column perks. So right off the bat, we can cross a couple perks off the list, those being quick draw, elemental capacitor, and perpetual motion. Quick draw, because unless you are using rose to bow quick swap, perks that grant stability, range, or additional aim assist will have much more of a positive effect on your gameplay. The reason for this is 140 RPM hand cannons have an optimal time to kill, or TTK, of about 8.7 seconds, which is pretty okay in its own right. However, as soon as you miss a single headshot, your TTK drops to a 1.16, meaning a lot of the time, hitting that third headshot is the difference between winning and losing a fight. Now with that being said, you are probably wondering why I crossed elemental capacitor and perpetual motion off this list if both these perks grant stability. In perpetual motion's case, I simply don't think the perk is procced enough when you are actually in engagements, simply for the fact that in order to activate the perk you have to be in motion, and a lot of hand cannon engagements take place sitting still and playing around cover, especially in 33 game modes. And for elemental capacitor, I simply think we can do better than the +20 stability that Void grants, and all the other elemental capacitor buffs really won't be doing that much in terms of helping us hit our shots. Now my third favorite perk in this column is actually Rapid Hit, as it grants stacking stability for each headshot up to 5 headshots, meaning every time you hit a headshot it should become somewhat easier to hit that next shot. As good as Rapid Hit may seem, it's not quite as good as the next perk we're going to be looking at, that perk being Moving Target. Now this perk is actually the second least used perk in the third column according to Light.gg, which I was very surprised by, as this perk actually increases ADS, strafe speed, something that is very helpful when peak shotting with the hand cannon. It also gives +10 aim assist, something that makes it significantly easier to hit shots with. However, Moving Target does have one downside, and that is it decreases ADS time by 2.5 seconds, which in the grand scheme of things really isn't that big of a deal. Now moving on to our last and best perk in the third column, that being Slide Shot. Slide Shot grants +30 stability and +20 range, and all you have to do is slide, not kidding. And on top of that, the buff lasts for 3 seconds or until you hit a shot, and only has a 0.3 second cooldown. There is no other perk in this column that grants this much stability or range, especially for this little effort. And for those reasons, I'm crowning Slide Shot the best perk in the third column. Now moving to the last and probably most important column of perks, the fourth column perks. Looking at these perks, there are immediately some less than desirable options that stand out to me, those being Vorpal Weapon, Snapshot Sights, and Eye of the Storm. Vorpal Weapon, because it only benefits you when you are killing someone in their super, which is a very small portion of the game. Snapshot Sights, because it only increases ADS time, and that just isn't enough to compete against some of the other options in this column. And lastly, Eye of the Storm, which is normally a good perk, however, it's also normally in the third column, not the fourth. And yet again, some of the options in this column are just better. Now moving on to one of these better perks, that being Opening Shot. Opening Shot is a great perk as it gives plus 20 aim assist and plus 20 range for the first shot of attack. It just makes that first bullet of the fight feel super easy to hit. However, in my experience, specifically with hand cannons, it is significantly harder to hit your second and third shot opposed to your first. With that being said, this is still a great perk. However, I'm going to choose one of the other two perks that are always active, while also granting range. One of these two perks is Rangefinder. Rangefinder grants plus 10 range and also increases zoom by 10%. Now this range boost is always active as long as you are ADS, which is pretty great because every time you are going to want range on a hand cannon, you will be ADS'd. Also, the additional range makes it somewhat easier to hit those shots from far away. Something I do want to touch on that I haven't really seen mentioned a whole lot is, for me at least, hitting shots at closer ranges with Rangefinder becomes significantly harder because you are zoomed in more on your target. Now this is something I'm sure anyone could get used to, just something I thought I should mention. Now moving on to the last perk of the video, Explosive Payload. Now Explosive Payload increases damage fall off by splitting the body shot damage of the bullet in half and making half of the bullet always do full damage. Meaning, as long as you're hitting someone, you will always be doing 24 damage, no matter how far away from the target you are. Now before I started making this video, Explosive Payload also increases flinch, as you can see from this clip here. Now this additional flinch, as you can imagine, makes it significantly harder for your opponents to hit shots, especially in a hand cannon duel. And it's exactly for that reason that I'm crowning Explosive Payload the best perk in the fourth column. So there you have it, the perfect rose roll. Well, other than the masterwork, which really isn't ever not range on a 140. So anyways, now you guys are probably wondering, where's that top tier player's insight on Rose you promised? Well, it's right here. So I interviewed Swift Gunner, and I asked him the basic interview questions, why do you like your Rose? What's your favorite Rose? And he basically answered with, this was his perfect Rose roll in his eyes, except for the reload masterwork. He would change it out for range. Other than that, he said he enjoyed Explosive Payload because of the additional flinch, and he enjoyed moving target because of the additional ADS or strafe speed. So that concludes the video. Thank you guys for watching to the end if you did, and thank you so much for the recent support on the channel. It's a lot of support for me on my last video, and the channel's kind of been blowing up, so thank you very much. And if you had anything about this video that you didn't enjoy or you think I can improve upon, make sure to leave it in the comments below, as I'm still in the process of making these reviews the best they can be. Thank you guys for watching again, and this was Jolt. I love seeing all your beautiful faces, and have a good day. Bye.